You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your Security Plus certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Application-level indicators are signs of suspicious activity observable within application logs, telemetry, and user interactions. Unlike network or host-level indicators that highlight infrastructure anomalies, these signals are tied directly to how users and systems interact with the application itself. Indicators might appear as abnormal query requests, unexpected file uploads, or strange sequences of workflow steps. Because attackers frequently target applications to bypass defenses and gain direct access to data, application indicators often provide the first and most precise evidence of exploitation attempts. Monitoring these signals closely gives defenders visibility into attacks focused on business logic, user sessions, or application-specific vulnerabilities. Application telemetry, including error messages, logs, and user event tracking, is essential for identifying malicious behavior. Errors provide insight into how attackers probe for vulnerabilities, such as repeated failed queries or malformed requests. Logs capture the sequence of actions taken, creating a narrative of both legitimate and suspicious activity. User event monitoring, when tied to identity and role, enables defenders to distinguish between ordinary workflows and anomalous patterns. Without telemetry, attackers can manipulate applications unnoticed, blending into normal traffic. With it, defenders have the raw material to detect, analyze, and respond to threats. Application telemetry serves as the lens through which security teams interpret subtle but critical signals. Injection attacks leave distinct indicators within application logs. Unexpected query structures, such as SQL statements appended to input fields, suggest attempts to manipulate back-end databases. Similarly, unusual parameters in HTTP requests, particularly those with special characters or escape sequences, may signal cross-site scripting or command injection attempts. While not every malformed input is malicious, repeated patterns across multiple requests indicate systematic probing. Applications that capture and log query details provide defenders with visibility into these attempts, making it possible to identify exploitation early. Recognizing these injection-related anomalies allows organizations to respond before attackers succeed in manipulating application logic. Authentication abuse also produces identifiable indicators. Rapid sequences of failed login attempts may indicate brute force attacks, while widespread failures across accounts suggest credential stuffing. Frequent account lockouts triggered by these attempts become another strong signal of malicious activity. Attackers know authentication is a gateway to valuable resources, and their methods leave behind measurable footprints in application logs. Defenders who monitor for repeated failures, unusual login timing, or improbable geographic access can detect credential-based exploitation before attackers achieve success. Authentication indicators are particularly important because they signal early stages of compromise when intervention is still highly effective. Insecure Direct Object Reference (IDOR) exploitation also generates observable indicators. When users request resources or records outside their expected authorization scope, such as accessing another user's account ID, or downloading files not tied to their role applications, may log unexpected resource accesses. While some anomalies may result from user error, repeated or targeted attempts reveal malicious intent. Logging resource identifiers tied to user roles helps defenders detect these violations, even if the requests succeed technically. IDOR indicators highlight gaps in access control and show how attackers test boundaries. Treating such anomalies as potential exploitation attempts strengthens defenses against data exposure. Business logic flaws, which involve abusing intended workflows, leave subtler but still detectable indicators. For instance, an attacker exploiting a flaw in an e-commerce application may submit orders with negative quantities or manipulate checkout steps out of sequence. These anomalies may appear as impossible values, unusual state transitions, or skipped steps in application logs. Indicators tied to business logic reflect that attackers are not just breaking code but bending processes to their advantage. Detecting them requires careful understanding of expected workflows and monitoring for deviations. Business logic indicators remind defenders that attackers exploit design flaws as much as technical ones. Indicators of file upload abuse often surface in logs when applications receive unexpected file types or malformed payloads. Attackers may attempt to upload executables, scripts, or files containing embedded malware disguised as harmless formats. Large numbers of failed uploads, unusual MIME types, or files with double extensions, e.g., document.pdf.exe, are clear warning signs. Malformed payloads that trigger parsing errors provide additional clues. Monitoring upload logs allows defenders to identify when attackers are attempting to weaponize file handling functionality. Since file uploads provide a direct entry point for malicious content, spotting these anomalies is vital to maintaining application integrity. Application exceptions and stack traces recorded in logs can themselves serve as indicators of exploitation attempts. Attackers often cause intentional errors by sending malformed inputs, hoping to extract debugging details that reveal internal application logic. If verbose error messages or stack traces are exposed, they provide attackers with valuable reconnaissance. Frequent or repeated exceptions tied to unusual inputs should therefore be treated as potential exploitation attempts. While developers may see these errors as nuisances, security teams recognize them as breadcrumbs left by probing activity. Proper monitoring turns error traces from liabilities into early warning signals of application abuse. Rate limiting and throttling systems provide another layer of indicators by surfacing automated abuse attempts. When thresholds are exceeded, such as hundreds of login attempts per minute or rapid API calls far beyond normal use, it signals bot-driven activity. Throttling alerts indicate when attackers are testing system resilience or attempting brute force at scale. These indicators are especially helpful because they highlight behavior patterns not easily attributable to human users. Defenders can treat throttling violations as high-confidence evidence of automated exploitation, using them to trigger additional investigation or immediate containment. Automated abuse leaves behind distinct, measurable signals in rate-limiting systems. Ultimately, application-level indicators are often the first signs of targeted exploitation. Attackers probing for weaknesses in authentication, sessions, or business logic must interact with the application directly, producing logs and anomalies in the process. Defenders who treat application telemetry as a critical detection source gain visibility into threats that may bypass network or host-level defenses. These indicators bridge the gap between technical vulnerabilities and real-world exploitation attempts. By monitoring them carefully, organizations identify attacks while still in their exploratory phase. Application indicators, though sometimes subtle, form the cornerstone of proactive detection at the application layer. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Mapping application logs to standardized schemas improves detection efficiency. Structured logging ensures that events like authentication failures, file uploads, or query anomalies are recorded consistently. This makes it easier for security tools to parse, correlate, and analyze logs across different systems. For example, logging formats like JSON allows seamless integration with CIEEE platforms, enabling automated detection of suspicious activity. Without standardization, critical details may be lost in unstructured text, creating blind spots for defenders. By adopting structured logging schemas, organizations create reliable datasets that enhance visibility into application-level indicators and reduce the risk of overlooking subtle but important anomalies. Correlating application events with network and host telemetry builds a fuller picture of an incident. An application log showing multiple failed login attempts may not seem critical alone, but when paired with network data showing brute force traffic and host logs showing CPU spikes, the case for compromise strengthens. Correlation allows defenders to move beyond isolated alerts, uncovering the broader context of attacks. SIEM and XDR systems automate this process, unifying application, host, and network signals. By correlating across multiple layers, organizations reduce false positives and create a timeline of attacker actions, transforming scattered anomalies into a coherent narrative of compromise. Anomaly detection applied to user behavior within applications reveals deviations that signal exploitation. Establishing baselines for how users normally interact, what features they access, how frequently, and from which devices allows detection of unusual patterns. A standard employee suddenly querying thousands of records or submitting malformed inputs repeatedly may indicate insider abuse or compromised credentials. Anomaly detection adapts as behaviors evolve, reducing reliance on static thresholds. While false positives are inevitable, anomaly detection surfaces activities that traditional rules might miss. Within applications, this approach highlights attacks aimed at data access or business logic rather than technical vulnerabilities alone. Monitoring API usage patterns provides another critical set of application indicators. APIs are often the backbone of modern applications, exposing functions and data to external systems. Attackers exploit APIs by overusing privileged calls, submitting malformed requests, or chaining endpoints in unexpected ways. Indicators include excessive privilege API calls, high request rates from a single client, or requests outside documented usage. Because APIs often bypass traditional interfaces, misuse may be harder to spot without dedicated monitoring. Detecting suspicious API patterns helps defenders identify exploitation early, particularly in cloud-native and mobile environments where APIs represent primary points of exposure. Sanitizing and obfuscating logs prevents sensitive data from being exposed during detection and investigation. Application logs sometimes capture raw inputs, including passwords, session tokens, or personally identifiable information. If left unprotected, these logs become a target for attackers, or even a source of accidental disclosure. Sanitization involves masking sensitive fields, while obfuscation replaces identifiable details with tokens. These practices ensure logs remain useful for detecting indicators without increasing risk. Defenders can still track patterns and anomalies without revealing sensitive data. Secure logging practices balance detection needs with privacy requirements, protecting both organizations and users during investigations. Instrumentation for security ensures applications produce logs that are tamper-resistant and trustworthy. Audit trails must capture critical actions like authentication attempts, privilege escalations, or file uploads in a way that cannot be altered silently. Immutability and tamper-evident logging systems guarantee that attackers cannot erase their footprints once inside. Technologies like append-only logs or blockchain-backed records provide additional assurance. When audit logs are both comprehensive and protected, defenders can rely on them as accurate sources of truth during investigations. Instrumentation turns applications into active participants in their own defense, generating indicators with integrity and resilience against attacker manipulation. Alerting thresholds must be tuned carefully to balance signal and noise. Application-specific indicators, such as failed logins or unusual API calls, occur naturally in benign contexts. Without tuning, systems may flood analysts with false positives. Establishing thresholds like alerting only after a set number of failures within a time window reduces noise. Thresholds should adapt dynamically, reflecting evolving usage patterns. For example, alerts may scale differently during peak business hours versus off hours. Tuning ensures that indicators remain actionable without overwhelming analysts. The goal is to maintain high sensitivity to real threats while minimizing distractions from expected background activity. Integration of Web Application Firewall (WAF) alerts with application logs consolidates detection. WAFs block or flag suspicious traffic at the perimeter, such as SQL injection attempts or malformed requests. When combined with application logs, these alerts provide deeper context. Was the blocked request part of a larger probing campaign? Or did similar attempts succeed against the application? This integration creates a layered view of exploitation attempts, linking external probes with internal anomalies. By correlating WAF and application data, defenders identify attacks earlier and respond more effectively, ensuring that perimeter defenses and internal visibility complement rather than duplicate each other. Forensic capture of application logs is essential during investigations. When compromise is suspected, raw logs must be preserved in their original state for analysis. Forensic capture involves exporting logs securely, maintaining integrity, and documenting the process. Analysts then use these records to reconstruct attacker actions, trace indicators across sessions, and validate exploitation. Without forensic capture, valuable evidence may be lost to log rotation or tampering. Preserved logs also support regulatory reporting or legal cases when breaches involve sensitive data. Forensic capture ensures that application indicators remain available not just for immediate response but for long-term accountability. Prevention plays a vital role in reducing the frequency of application indicators. Secure coding practices, such as input validation and output encoding, prevent many exploitation attempts from succeeding in the first place. Runtime protections, like application self-protection mechanisms, further limit attackers' opportunities. The fewer vulnerabilities that exist, the fewer indicators defenders must monitor. Prevention reduces noise, allowing security teams to focus on genuine anomalies rather than constant probing attempts. While detection remains critical, prevention ensures applications generate fewer high-severity signals, shifting security posture from reactive firefighting toward proactive resilience. Preventative measures are the foundation that support effective detection. Measuring detection coverage across application components helps organizations understand where gaps remain. Not every workflow, API, or feature may be instrumented for logging, creating blind spots. By mapping coverage, defenders identify critical areas lacking visibility and prioritize improvements. For example, sensitive functions like financial transactions or administrative actions should have complete log coverage, while less critical features may require lighter monitoring. Measuring coverage also supports continuous improvement, ensuring security evolves with application updates. Without this discipline, defenders risk overconfidence, assuming indicators will surface everywhere, when in reality some pathways remain unmonitored. Comprehensive coverage strengthens trust in detection efforts. In summary, application-level indicators are essential for detecting attacks focused on logic, data, and user interactions. Structured logging, correlation with other telemetry, and anomaly detection provide visibility into subtle exploitation attempts. Monitoring APIs, sanitizing logs, and ensuring tamper resistance strengthen the quality of indicators, while tuned thresholds and WAF integration enhance efficiency. Forensic practices preserve evidence, while prevention and measurement reduce reliance on constant detection. Application indicators highlight that security is not just about infrastructure, but about the very software users interact with daily. By treating application telemetry as critical, defenders ensure early, accurate detection of targeted exploitation. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.